guys, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be me reflecting on some rather fraught purchasing decisions that have been made. I'm going to be talking about 10-ish of the worst purchases I've ever made. This is going to be pretty much all beauty, but there is some like luxury fashion in there and then a little bit of a surprise at the end. But I mostly want to do this video to reflect because I definitely have gotten a lot better about doing research on products before I buy them. As much as I can do anti-hauls on my channel and talk about being a smart consumer, as much as I've made growth in that direction, I still have been very much susceptible to hype and marketing in the past. And also I just think it's fun and also important to reflect on some questionable decisions that have been made so that you don't make the same mistakes in the future. And hopefully if you're going to buy any of these products, I can kind of maybe sway you in the right direction or just give you a different perspective. Also, I think it's important to note that not all of the products I mentioned in this video are going to be products I like regret or don't enjoy using. They're just things I maybe regret buying in the way that I did. I might have maybe waited for a sale or tried to find it at a lower price or straight up just not bought it at all. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and without further ado, let's dive into a pit of my regrets, otherwise known as a Friday night.
Sorry.
The first product I want to talk about is, without question, the dumbest thing that I've ever added to my makeup collection. This is a Pat McGrath lip balm from the Star Wars collaboration. This collection was done to commemorate the release of The Rise of Skywalker, which was the last of my trilogy. Obviously, Pat McGrath is a makeup brand on the luxury side of things. Sometimes I feel like her formulas are worth the splurge, sometimes, most of the time, I don't. So I didn't buy any of the more expensive color cosmetics, but I did want to buy something from the collection, and I definitely thought that buying one of the lippies was probably the best way to go. They had a collection of, I believe, 4 different lip fetish lip balms, and while I have tried Pat McGrath's lipstick formula, I hadn't tried her lip balm formula yet, so I figured it would be a good thing to go for. I went with the shade Gold Astral, which is in the C3PO packaging. Ironic because I hate C3PO. It is beautiful. I think it looks lovely on the lips. It definitely does have some glitter flecks running throughout it, so if you're wanting like just a straight up plain lip balm, definitely not going to be the thing to go for. That being said, is it my favorite lip balm formula? Absolutely not. I don't think it's particularly hydrating. I definitely think it's more of a like showy cosmetic type product rather than an actual like skincare or lip care type product. So because of that, and also for the fact that it's like a $30-something lip balm, this is definitely one of the dumbest things I've ever bought. I did buy it as a fan of Star Wars, so it is a collectible item, but I don't think that using collector's status to kind of justify dumb purchases is something that really works for me. So this plagues my thoughts. She lives rent-free in my brain, but not in a good way, but I have it, so yeah. A couple of purchases from Charlotte Tilbury could definitely fall into this video. Not because I don't like the products necessarily. Like, for example, the Filmstar Bronze and Glow. I love this. I really enjoy using this little duo here. This bronzer is kind of cool toned enough that I can do kind of contouring and bronzing in one. This highlighter works really nicely with my skin tone and I feel like looks very natural on my skin. And overall, it's a product I enjoy having in my collection. Should I have bought it though? No. I do think that some of Charlotte Tilbury's products are worth the money and worth the splurge. For example, the Hollywood Flawless Filter I think is 100% worth the money. You get a ton of product. I feel like this is definitely a lot more value for your money. Whereas this, while it's nice and while the formula for me works, I don't think that it's anything super special. I don't think it's the best bronzer or the best highlighter that I've ever used. And for like $65 for a duo, you should be getting that. Similarly, I do feel the same way about the eyeshadows I've tried from Charlotte Tilbury's. I used to own one of their luxury palettes, which was a quad of eyeshadows for $54 hairs. I don't have it anymore because I did end up selling it because I couldn't justify keeping a $54 hair eyeshadow palette of eyeshadows I didn't even like in the first place. Really not great eyeshadow palette formula. I'm astounded to see that they're coming out with this $54 quad of the most basic browns you could ever get in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, the audacity in this makeup brand
Is astronomical.
I still have this Instant Look in a palette from Charlotte Tilbury, and this I think still would qualify for this video because I mean, yes, it's something that's very like effortless, very easy, and very convenient for travel. I don't travel that often, so I don't really need to be buying travel eyeshadow palettes. I do think that the cheek product formulas in here are very similar to the Filmstar Bronze and Glow. So if you were wondering about that, I do think that they are pretty consistent formula between this and this. However, I didn't need these 3 eyeshadow colors in my collection, and I also definitely did not need these 2 cheek products in my collection, given that I already had this one. But I think this purchase has helped me in the long run because it basically taught me to remember what I have in my collection before buying things. And also that I am not somebody who needs travel palettes. palettes. Who does? Who travels enough to need a travel palette? I really feel like the concept of like travel palettes in general is something that was coined by beauty influencers who were traveling a lot for brand trips. I definitely don't think that the average person who doesn't travel more than like 2 to 3 times a year needs a dedicated palette to take traveling with them. Most eyeshadow palettes I feel perfectly comfortable traveling with, unless it's like a really fragile formula. And honestly, I never travel light enough with like small enough capacity in my luggage to where I wouldn't be able to take like an eyeshadow palette and a separate bronzer, blush, and highlighter rather than just having everything all in one. Next up, I'm not talking specifically about the Tatcha Silk Canvas, I'm talking about the concept of buying backups in general. For me, the feasibility of buying a backup in my collection and just having a product on standby in the event that I'll use up an entire product and then need it is basically a statistical impossibility. These are all the backups that I own in my collection. It's pretty much all skincare products. I think the only things that you really would need backups of are, for me, like lash glue, because I use the same lash glue and I go through lash glue pretty frequently. Or beauty sponges, I have like 3 or 4 backup AOA Studio Wonder Blenders because I do go through these frequently, and I think it's always good to be like switching out your beauty sponge. So for products that you're using consistently on a daily basis, if you have only one mascara, or if you have a black eyeliner, I guess that makes sense to have backups for. But honestly, even if you don't have like this going on, if you're a beauty enthusiast and you have like multiple foundations or multiple primers or whatever, I don't think that buying backups is always the smartest thing. So I really regret buying a backup of the Tatcha Silk Canvas because I like this primer. I don't like it enough to a point where it's like I'm gonna get rid of all my other primers and only use this one forever. Plus, it's really a little goes a long way product, so I really don't use a ton of this every time I use this primer. Therefore, I'm going through this very slowly, and I have this one just sitting around waiting to be opened. So I'm kind of trying to use this one at a really breakneck speed, but right now she's collecting dust. Raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by Tati Westbrook. Because I have. This is something that I almost forgot about, but the Clarisonic Foundation Brush. I have my Clarisonic and I don't use it very frequently just because I do have very sensitive skin. And for me, even though I have the sensitive brush head, using this frequently can be a little bit too much for my skin. I've just been trying to be more gentle with my cleansing step anyways. I haven't really been using my Clarisonic for Clarisonicing, but I've had this goddamn foundation brush head for so long. And I bought this specifically on the recommendation of Tati Westbrook in what was most likely an undisclosed sponsorship, but we'll get to that on another day. Basically, this is supposed to work as a no effort foundation brush. You're supposed to be able to hit the button and it blends your foundation out for you. Tati's video on this little brush in particular basically made it sound like it was like the beauty tool to end all beauty tools. You could do contour with it, you could do like anything with it, basically. So I was very excited. I went ahead and bought the foundation brush head, which I think was $35, so probably the most expensive brush I have in my collection. But again, I was kind of banking on this one being like a replacement for my beauty sponges, the end all be all of tools. I definitely prefer the look that a sponge can give you. A sponge's main purpose is to soak up excess product. That's what it does. It absorbs the extra product off the layer of your skin and pushes everything else in. I feel like sponges just give you the most natural effect, whereas foundation brushes, they tend to give you a more full coverage effect because instead of taking away that excess product, it's kind of blending it into your skin. But this was also a dumb decision on my part because I didn't really read the reviews. I just went off of the words of one review. I never do that anymore, especially with products that are expensive like this, but I really was believing that this was going to be like the tool to end all tools in my collection, and it definitely, she was nothing like that.
She's nothing of the sort.
I felt like the way that I blended things made everything look really streaky. I just didn't like the finish that it gave, and overall, not a good time. Another thing from Tatcha, but this one was a dumb purchase because of what it is. This is the Tatcha, the Silk Peony Eye Cream. I think it's beautiful in terms of packaging. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little peony inside the lid. I think it's gorgeous. And it's basically just your standard pot of eye cream. This, I really fell in love with the claims. I think Tatcha just is one of those skincare brands that pulls at my heartstrings a lot, despite for me a lot of their formulas being kind of basic. I think probably the biggest things that are worth it from Tatcha would be their Deep Cleanse Cleanser. I think that's lovely. But the main reason that I feel like this was a dumb decision was because ingredients wise, it's really not that different from a general eye cream. It's also not that different from a general moisturizer. I've always said that I feel like for the most part, eye creams, unless they have a special like active ingredient in them, for example retinol or vitamin C, they're pretty much just moisturizers put into small pots and marked up heavily. That is definitely true for this eye cream. I feel like you can get similar results by just taking a nice thick occlusive moisturizer up around where you would take your eye cream rather than having a dedicated, very expensive, albeit very beautiful, but very expensive dedicated eye cream. And I know people have different philosophies on that, but just for me, looking at the ingredients, I don't really see anything that makes eye creams or dedicated ones super special. And then to round out the beauty category, the first thing I wanted to talk about are the Huda Beauty Amethyst Obsessions palette and the ColourPop It's My Pleasure palette. I bought both of these despite them being the exact same palette. Yeah, I already owned the Amethyst Obsessions and I'd had it for quite a bit of time, and then the It's My Pleasure came out. I had a ton of requests to review that one, so I immediately bought it without even looking at the color story that much. I just knew it was going to be a purple palette, so I was probably going to enjoy the color story. I didn't even realize how similar these palettes were until I got it in the mail. I opened it up and I was like, wait, that is like the same exact layout of the Huda Beauty palette. I compared them. It was obviously meant to be a dupe of the Huda palette. I actually did end up liking the formula of the ColourPop one a little bit more than the Huda one. So in that respect, it wasn't something I regretted buying, but it was definitely a dumb purchase. And then also the Glamlite Pizza palette. I had no business buying that palette. Like, not only was it gigantic, thick, and also huge, so very hard to store, the color story really was nothing that special. At that point, I already owned the James Charles palette, so I didn't need anything like rainbow or anything that like colorful or basic. But also my eyeshadow palette collection was a lot bigger back then than it is now, and I had so many dupes of every single color in there. Plus the Glamlite formula, disgusting. That was a bad one. I ended up decluttering and selling that one, and I made a loss on that. Lesson learned. We don't buy from Glamlite. Next up, the purchase that inspired this entire video. If you follow me on Twitter, you've definitely been privy to me complaining about these shoes, but I want to talk about these and give my thoughts on them because I want to warn anybody from buying these shoes ever. These are the Christian Louboutin So-Kate heels. Classic black patent leather, very pointy toe, super high heel. These are probably the highest heels that I own in my collection. And of course the classic red bottoms. As you can see, the soles are actually in pretty good condition because I have not worn these very much because they hurt. Yeah! Christian Louboutin, I believe, has actually said in interviews that he doesn't make his shoes to be comfortable. I believe the quote was something along the lines of like, comfort doesn't factor into how I design my shoes. Shoes are meant to make a woman look beautiful, not comfortable, which is so stupid. And honestly, a slap in the face to most customers. I thankfully did not buy these retail. I bought them, they were new, but they were on Poshmark. I believe like $200 below retail price, and I bought them a while ago. So this was when Louboutin's prices were a little bit lower. These were shoes I saved up for months to buy because I'd been coveting a pair of red bottoms for a long time. They photograph beautifully. Aesthetically, they're gorgeous. They make your legs look insane. And I think they're a beautiful pair of shoes, but so poorly designed. They're rigid. It's like they were designed for a robot foot and not a human foot, which can flex and move. This allows for basically no mobility. I will forever rail against the So-Kates. I know people have said that the Picalet heels are a little bit more comfortable, but because of how much I despise these and also because Christian Louboutin clearly doesn't care to make comfortable shoes, I honestly am not in the market to buy another pair of Louboutins. I think Manolo Blahnik makes far superior shoes in far better quality. Yeah. A big trend in fashion last year was micro tiny baby mini bags. I'm ashamed to say it was a trend that I bought into. So like this little baby from Jacquemus I think was the biggest culprit of that and kind of what sprung the trend. But we've since seen all these little iterations of tiny little baby bags like this that are pretty much useless. This one is actually meant to be used as a keychain, so I use this one for coins. Then this bag can't even fit like my iPhone 6S. I have a 6S. Come for me. So if I use this one, I'm using it with a credit card and that's it. Genuinely just kind of a dumb trend, and it was a trend. And for trends like these where it's going to be short-lived, I definitely think that buying versions of the trend from high street brands is a lot more feasible and just like a better way to go about it. I know Topshop and Urban Outfitters, I believe, were doing cute little mini bags like this, and I think that would have just been a lot smarter of a way to indulge in the trend without like being an idiot. College textbooks. Listen up.
It's a scam.
In my first quarter at UCLA, I made the grave, fatal, freshy mistake of buying all my textbooks the second the syllabus came out. I spent, I think, $250 on 3 textbooks that quarter, which was idiotic of me because one of them my friend found in a free PDF format online. The second one I ended up like not even using throughout the quarter, and then the third one I did end up using, but again it was only for 10 weeks. My strategy is, especially if it's for classes that don't pertain to my major, so for example I'm more likely to buy a textbook for a STEM class because that textbook might be useful later on when I'm studying for the MCAT, for example. But for like an English class, for example, I'm much more likely to like take that class with a friend and then maybe go halfsies on a single textbook and share that one between us. And for some classes they might even just like list access the textbook as course material, but then not even use it throughout the entire class. And so now what I do is I don't buy textbooks until maybe like the second week of class, if even then. Just in general, if you can, like talk to people who've taken the class, ask them if the textbook was needed, because a lot of the time classes don't even use a textbook that's listed. It's just a textbook that was used by a previous teacher of that class, but then the new professor maybe doesn't use it. So always wait to buy textbooks. And then the last and final thing on this list, Webkinz. You're probably like, what? As a sweet summer child, I would say from age 5 or 6 to maybe 10 or 12, Webkinz, Club Penguin, and Pop Tropica were my thing. However, Webkinz was designed so that you had to buy like in-person stuffed animals, and then there was a claim code on it so you could claim your online animal. Very smart. Each of those stuffed animals, I believe, was like from $10 to $15, and anytime I got holiday money, so I would always get like $20 from my grandparents for my birthday or $20 for Christmas, I would take that money and spend it on Webkinz. I've been too scared to log into my Webkinz account and see how many pets I have on Webkinz just so I can total up how much I spent on those Webkinz. Those memories are something that I treasure forever, and while I am, I guess, kind of grateful that I had parents who would let me buy things that I wanted to buy if it was my money, I definitely wish that at some point my parents had maybe said, hey, maybe save that birthday money instead of buying inanimate objects, especially because you only needed to buy one pet per year to renew your account, but I liked having new pets constantly. So literally whenever I got any type of money, because I didn't have an allowance, whenever I got money I would like buy Webkinz, which was so stupid. Eventually I think I realized I wanted to like have money to spend on other things, so I decided to start saving my birthday and holiday money for clothing from Justice because I had no taste, clearly. Eventually I stopped buying Webkinz, I let my account expire, and I like to think that that's where I learned how to spend money smartly, but clearly this video exists. So alright guys, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video reflecting on the dumbest things I've ever bought, and I'm definitely on a better path this year in terms of makeup buying, because as of now we're almost halfway through the year and I've spent less than $100 on makeup in total, which I think is awesome. My goal is to not make VIB this year, and I think I'm definitely on track for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you made it to the very end of this video, I love you a lot more than these shoes. Bye.